The first shot came without warning. Commander Zekthor of the Galactic Enforcement Fleet had ordered his weapons officer to fire upon the strange vessel that had wandered into restricted space. The humans, as they called themselves, had ignored every hailing frequency and every warning beacon. Protocol was clear. Trespassers in the forbidden zones were to be eliminated immediately. The plasma bolt streaked through the void, a brilliant lance of superheated matter that could melt through 3 meters of reinforced battle steel. It struck the human ship's hull and dissipated like morning mist. Zekthor's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. He ordered another shot, then another. Each one splashed harmlessly against the bizarre craft. "Sir, they're opening a communication channel," his communications officer reported, her voice trembling. On the view screen appeared a human female, her face displaying what the translator interpreted as curiosity rather than fear. She had strange hair the color of dying stars and only 2 eyes, positioned forward on her face like a predator. "Hello there," she said in a pleasant tone. "Is there a problem? We're just passing through on our way to the Andromeda relay." Zekthor's mandibles clicked in frustration. "You have violated galactic law by entering this sector. Your ship should be debris by now. What kind of shielding technology do you possess?" The human woman looked confused. "Shielding? Our shields aren't even activated. The diagnostics panel has been acting up, so we shut them down for repairs. Did you just shoot at us?" This was impossible. Zekthor had served in the Galactic Fleet for 40 cycles. He had seen every known defensive technology in the galaxy. Nothing could withstand a direct plasma strike without shields. Nothing. "Prepare boarding teams," he ordered. "I want that ship captured and its technology analyzed." 20 minutes later, his boarding team breached the human vessel's airlock. What happened next would change the course of galactic history forever. As his soldiers stormed through the corridors, they encountered 3 humans who seemed more annoyed than frightened. The lead soldier, a veteran of 30 campaigns, raised his plasma rifle and fired at the nearest human, a male with dark skin and a build that suggested physical labor. The bolt struck the human square in the chest. The man stumbled backward, his clothing vaporizing from the impact, but his skin remained completely unmarked. He looked down at his bare chest, then back up at the soldier with an expression of pure anger. "You just destroyed my favorite shirt," the human said, his voice dangerously calm. The soldier fired again and again. Each shot hit its mark. Each shot failed to penetrate the human skin. The dark-skinned man walked forward through the barrage of plasma fire as if strolling through a light rain. He reached the soldier and, with a single push, sent the armored warrior flying backward into a wall. The soldier's advanced combat armor crumpled from the impact. Panic spread through the boarding team. They fired everything they had at the 3 humans. Plasma bolts, ion beams, molecular disruptors. Nothing worked. The humans' clothing burned away, but their skin remained pristine. One human, a younger male with red hair, actually yawned during the assault. "Is this going to take much longer?" he asked. "I was in the middle of a really good book." The boarding team retreated in disorder, half of them injured from the humans' casual defensive movements. Back on the command ship, Zekthor watched the helmet camera footage in stunned silence. He had to report this to the Galactic Council immediately, but first, he needed more information. "Analysis team, review all data on these humans. Where do they come from?" His science officer pulled up the information they had intercepted from the human ship's computer. They claimed to originate from a planet called Earth, in what they call the Orion Arm. It's located in an uncharted region we've classified as Zone 447. The planet appears to be a Class 7 death world. Death worlds were rare, planets so hostile that sentient life rarely evolved there. Those few species that did emerge from death worlds were typically hardy and aggressive, but nothing in the record suggested anything like what he had just witnessed. What kind of environmental hazards does this planet have? The science officer's coloring shifted to a sickly purple, a sign of distress in his species. Sir, the list is extensive. The planet has extreme temperature variations, high gravity, intense radiation from its star, a corrosive, oxygen-rich atmosphere, aggressive microbial life, and an abundance of toxic plant and animal species. The dominant predators on this world include creatures that could easily kill most galactic sentients, and the humans evolved as persistence hunters, chasing their prey to exhaustion across vast distances. Zekthor felt his blood chill. Persistence hunters from a death world that made plasma weapons bounce off their skin. He opened a priority channel to Galactic Command. This was beyond his authority to handle. Within the hour, every major power in the galaxy had received the report. The humans had arrived, and nothing in the galactic arsenal could harm them. The human ship was eventually escorted to the nearest diplomatic station, though escorted was perhaps too strong a word. The humans had agreed to come peacefully after the woman captain made it clear that destroying the galactic fleet ships would be easy, but would interfere with their diplomatic goals. Captain Sarah Chen, as she introduced herself, seemed genuinely interested in establishing good relations with the galactic community. The council chamber on Station Harmony was designed to accommodate representatives from 200 different species. Today, it was packed beyond capacity as word spread about the indestructible humans. Captain Chen stood in the center chamber, flanked by her two crew members, the dark-skinned man named David and the red-haired younger man called Tommy. They had been provided with new clothing after the boarding incident. Chancellor Vrix, a being composed entirely of crystalline structures that resonated with sound, addressed the humans. Captain Chen, we must understand the nature of your defensive capabilities. Are you willing to submit to scientific testing? Sarah smiled, a gesture that showed her teeth. Many in the chamber recoiled, as baring teeth was a threat display for most species. The humans seemed unaware of this. Sure, we're happy to help. Though I should mention that we're not special. All humans are like this. It's just normal for us. The word normal echoed through the chamber's translation systems in 200 languages. Normal. These beings considered being impervious to weapons as normal. A Zrillian delegate, whose species prided itself on their advanced energy weapons, stood up. Impossible. Our weapons can destroy small moons. Nothing organic can withstand such power. Sarah shrugged. I mean, it would probably hurt. We can feel pain, and enough force will definitely injure us. But your standard weapons? They're just not dangerous to human skin. It's probably because of where we evolved. Our sun puts out a lot of radiation, and our planet had even more before we developed our ozone layer. Our skin evolved to be really good at protection. Over the next 3 days, the humans submitted to extensive testing. Scientists from across the galaxy gathered to witness the impossible. They started with low-level energy weapons and gradually increased the power. Plasma cannons, disintegration rays, quantum disruptors, even exotic weapons based on dark matter manipulation. Nothing penetrated human skin. The weapons would destroy the humans' clothing and any objects they held, but the skin itself remained unharmed. David stood patiently as a Corellian weapons specialist fired a pulse cannon at his arm. The weapon was designed to punch through starship hulls. The beam struck David's forearm and scattered like light hitting a mirror. That one tingles, David commented, like when your foot falls asleep. The Corellian scientist made frantic notes. The energy is being dispersed across the entire surface area of the skin and then radiated away as harmless thermal energy. But this violates the laws of thermodynamics. The heat should be building up, cooking the subject from within. Tommy, who had been browsing his datapad during his turn in the testing chamber, looked up. Oh, we're really good at thermoregulation too. Humans can survive in extreme temperatures. We sweat to cool down and shiver to warm up. Our bodies are basically really efficient heat management systems. A Thraxian biologist, one of the galaxy's leading experts on evolutionary development, examined the cellular structure of a skin sample that Sarah had donated. The sample had been difficult to obtain, requiring industrial cutting tools that were normally used for mining operations. Under the quantum microscope, the biologist observed something that shouldn't exist. The cellular bonds in human skin are reinforced by what appears to be a naturally occurring form of molecular binding, similar to our artificial armor materials. But this evolved naturally. This is the result of billions of years of evolution on a planet that was actively trying to kill every living thing on it. The implications were staggering. Humans hadn't developed this resistance through technology or genetic engineering. They were simply the product of surviving on Earth. Every human born would have this same protection. There was no off switch, no weakness to exploit. The galactic community was faced with a species that was essentially invulnerable to every weapon they possessed. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. Within a week, human-related speculation dominated every news feed. Some species saw opportunity, hoping to trade with Earth for defensive technologies. Others saw threat, fearing these unkillable beings would conquer the galaxy. A few of the more aggressive species saw it as a challenge to overcome. The Crithian Empire, a militaristic civilization known for their weapons development, took the news particularly poorly. They had built their power on the strength of their arsenal. The existence of humans undermined their entire strategic doctrine. Ambassador Kreln of Krithia addressed the Galactic Council with barely concealed hostility. These humans cannot be allowed to roam freely. They are weapons themselves, walking through space with no countermeasure. We must establish protocols and restrictions. Sarah, who had been granted provisional diplomatic status, responded calmly. We're not weapons, Ambassador. We're just people trying to explore space and meet new friends. We don't want to fight anyone. In fact, most humans would prefer to avoid violence entirely. We're much more interested in sharing culture, technology, and building peaceful relationships. The Crithian ambassador's scales flared in a display of aggression. Words of peace from a species that cannot be harmed. Easy to claim peaceful intent when you risk nothing. The Crithian Empire will not accept this imbalance of power. Sarah's expression hardened slightly. Let me be very clear, Ambassador. The fact that your weapons don't work on our skin doesn't mean we're invincible. We can still be hurt by physical force, extreme temperatures beyond a certain point, suffocation, starvation, disease, and countless other things. We're not gods. We're just humans, and we're offering friendship. I'd suggest you take it. But the Crithian Empire was not interested in friendship. They saw the humans as an existential threat to their dominance. In secret, their weapons laboratories began working on new approaches. If energy weapons wouldn't work, perhaps kinetic weapons would. If standard physics couldn't penetrate human skin, perhaps they needed to think beyond standard physics. The Crithian military leadership authorized unlimited resources for a single project with a simple name: Human Killer. Meanwhile, more human ships arrived at the edges of known space. Earth had received the reports from Captain Chen's expedition and had begun sending out additional vessels. Each ship carried diplomats, scientists, and ordinary citizens eager to meet alien life. The humans were remarkably friendly, almost naively so. They seemed genuinely excited about every new species they encountered. They traded information freely, shared their art and music, and showed an intense curiosity about alien cultures. The Zypherian Collective, a peaceful trading federation, welcomed the humans with enthusiasm. The Zypherians were a reptilian species known for their craftsmanship and philosophy. Elder Sith, one of their leading philosophers, spent hours in conversation with a human xenobiologist named Jennifer. You must understand, Sith explained, that most species develop space travel out of necessity or competition. Resources grow scarce or rivals threaten. But you humans developed it purely from curiosity. You wanted to see what was out there. Jennifer nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. I mean, we had practical reasons too. But the main driver was always exploration and discovery. We wanted to know if we were alone in the universe. And now we know we're not. There are hundreds of intelligent species. It's amazing. Sith found the humans' enthusiasm infectious. You are not afraid? Many species fear the unknown. They see differences as threats. Some humans do, Jennifer admitted. We're not perfect. We have our own problems back home. But most of us, we figure that life that evolved on completely different worlds from ours is going to be weird and different. And that's wonderful. Imagine how boring it would be if everyone was just like us. This attitude was common among the humans. They seemed to genuinely appreciate diversity and were quick to find common ground with even the most alien species. The methane breathers of Titan Station, who existed in an environment that would instantly kill most oxygen-breathing species, found themselves in long-distance conversations with human chemists who were fascinated by their biology. The hive mind of Kepler 442, which had terrified most species with its collective consciousness, discovered that humans found the concept beautiful and spent hours asking questions about how individual thoughts merged into collective understanding. But not everyone was charmed by humanity's friendly nature. The Krithian Empire continued to see humans as a threat. Their weapons research had produced several promising prototypes. Instead of trying to penetrate human skin, they had developed weapons designed to affect humans through other means. Sonic weapons that could disrupt brain function. Gravity manipulation devices that could crush a human from all directions simultaneously. Biological weapons tailored to human physiology. Chemical agents that could be absorbed through the lungs. Ambassador Kreln presented these findings to the Krithian High Command with satisfaction. We have found their weaknesses. Humans can be killed. We simply need to adjust our tactics. The High Commander, a scarred veteran of countless wars, examined the reports. And these weapons have been tested? On tissue samples and computer models, yes. We would need live subjects for full testing. The High Commander's expression was predatory. Then we shall acquire subjects. Prepare a strike team. The attack came 3 weeks after first contact. A human civilian transport traveling between Station Harmony and the newly established Earth Embassy was ambushed by Krithian raiders. The ship carried 23 humans, mostly families and researchers. The Krithians deployed their new weapons with clinical precision. Sonic disruptors to stun and disorient. Gravity nets to immobilize. Chemical agents to weaken and sicken. The raid was over in minutes. The human ship was disabled, and 18 humans were captured. 5 managed to escape in a small shuttle. The survivors made it back to Station Harmony and reported the attack. The galactic community erupted in outrage. The Zypherians, the methane breathers, the hive mind, and dozens of other species condemned the Krithian Empire. Even species that had been wary of humanity were horrified by the unprovoked attack on civilians. The Galactic Council called an emergency session and demanded the immediate return of the captives. The Krithian Empire refused. Ambassador Krelm delivered a defiant speech. The humans are an invasive species that threatens the balance of galactic power. We are simply taking necessary precautions. The subjects in our custody will be studied so that we may develop adequate defenses against their kind. Sarah Chen stood before the council, and for the first time her friendly demeanor was completely gone. Her voice was cold and hard. You have 24 hours to return every single human you've taken, unharmed. After that, Earth will consider this an act of war. Kreln laughed, a harsh, grating sound. War? You have a single planet and a handful of ships. The Krithian Empire spans 40 star systems and commands a fleet of 10,000 warships. You cannot threaten us. Sarah's eyes were like ice. You've made a terrible mistake, Ambassador. You hurt our people. You took our children. Some of those captives are kids under 10 years old. You've just shown the entire galaxy what happens when someone pushes humanity too far. We're friendly, yes. We're peaceful, yes. We prefer cooperation over conflict. But when you threaten our families, when you take our children, you're about to learn why humans are the apex predator on a death world. The transmission ended. Sarah left the council chamber and returned to the human vessels. She opened a quantum communication link to Earth. The conversation was brief. When it ended, she addressed the other human ship captains who had gathered. Earth has given authorization. Prepare for military action. We're getting our people back. The Galactic Council watched in real time as the human response unfolded. More ships emerged from the wormhole leading to Earth's system. These were not exploration vessels or civilian transports. These were warships, though their design was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They were blunt and angular, built for durability rather than elegance. They bristled with weapons, but not energy weapons, kinetic weapons, railguns, missile batteries, chemical explosives. An analysis team studied the approaching human fleet and reported to the council. They're using primitive ballistic weapons. Why would they arm themselves with such outdated technology? The Thraxian biologists who had studied human cellular structure understood. Because they couldn't test energy weapons safely. Every species in the galaxy uses energy-based weapons because they're more efficient and powerful. But humans can't use them for practice or training because energy weapons don't work on them. So they develop kinetic weapons instead. Weapons that rely on physical impact. Weapons that can harm them, so they know the weapons work. The human fleet, numbering 50 warships, moved toward Crithian space. The Crithian Empire mobilized its defenses. 10,000 ships moved to intercept. The difference in numbers should have made this a brief encounter. Instead, it became a demonstration that would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The first human ship to engage was a destroyer called the Defiant. It charged directly at a formation of 30 Crithian cruisers. The Crithians opened fire with everything they had: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, disintegration beams. The Defiant's shields flickered and failed under the barrage. The hull armor vaporized, and then the weapons struck the crew compartments, where humans stood at their stations. The energy weapons splashed harmlessly against human skin. The crew worked calmly as their ship was torn apart around them. When the Defiant's weapons came into range, it fired a spread of railgun rounds, massive slugs of depleted uranium, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The rounds punched through Crithian shields as if they weren't there, and tore through starship hulls like paper. 3 Crithian cruisers exploded. 5 more were crippled. The Defiant itself was a flying wreck, with most of its hull simply gone, but the human crew was unharmed. They continued fighting from their exposed stations, open to the vacuum of space. A Zrillian observer watching the battle gasped, "They're fighting in hard vacuum. The humans are exposed to space and they're still fighting." The Thraxian biologist explained again. Death world. Humans evolved under intense radiation from their star. Their skin protects them from radiation, and they can hold their breath for several minutes, enough time to complete their battle tasks. The battle continued for 3 hours. The Crithian Empire threw everything they had at the human fleet. The humans lost 42 ships, each one reduced to scattered debris with human crew members floating in the wreckage. But those crew members weren't dead. Rescue shuttles picked them up, and they returned to the remaining ships to continue fighting. The Crithians lost 3,000 vessels. Their weapons simply couldn't harm humans, while human kinetic weapons were devastatingly effective against standard galactic ship designs. The remaining Crithian fleet retreated. The human warships continued toward the Crithian research station, where the captives were held. When they arrived, Sarah Chen herself led the boarding team. She wore no armor, just a simple uniform. She carried a projectile rifle, a weapon that fired metal bullets using chemical propellant. Primitive by galactic standards, but effective. The Crithian station defenders tried their new weapons, sonic disruptors that made the humans pause and shake their heads, but didn't stop them. Gravity weapons that slowed them down but couldn't hold them. Chemical weapons that made them cough and tear up but didn't incapacitate them. The humans pushed through everything, taking damage but not stopping. When a Crithian soldier got too close, they learned that human physical strength, evolved under higher gravity than most of the galaxy, was formidable. Sarah found the captive humans in a research laboratory. They had been subjected to various experiments, testing the limits of human durability. All of them were alive, though several showed signs of psychological trauma. She gathered them gently. "You're safe now. We're going home." One of the children, a girl who couldn't have been more than 8 years old, looked up at Sarah with tears in her eyes. "They hurt us. They wanted to see how much we could take." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I know, sweetheart, I know. But it's over now, and they're never going to hurt anyone again." The human fleet didn't destroy the Crithian research station. Instead, they disabled it and left it drifting. They rescued their people and departed Crithian space. But the message was clear. The Crithian Empire had discovered what Earth's ancient generals had known for millennia. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who cannot be killed, but the one who will not stop coming, no matter the cost. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Crithian Empire, its fleet shattered, and its military doctrine proven worthless, was censured and placed under sanctions. The humans had demonstrated both their defensive invulnerability and their offensive capability. But more importantly, they had shown something else. They had come to rescue their people, not to conquer. They had disabled the research station rather than destroying it, sparing the Crithian researchers even after those same researchers had tortured human captives. They had used the minimum force necessary to achieve their objective. Chancellor Vrix addressed the council. "We have witnessed something unprecedented. The humans possess the capability to conquer us all. Their defensive biology makes them nearly impossible to kill with our weapons. Their offensive weapons, crude as they may be, are devastatingly effective against our technologies. Yet they have shown restraint. They came to rescue their people and then withdrew. They seek peace, not dominance." Sarah Chen was invited to address the council. She stood once again in the center chamber, but this time the atmosphere was different. Before there had been curiosity mixed with fear, now there was respect. "Members of the council," she began, "I want to make something very clear. Humans are not conquerors. We're explorers. We're scientists, artists, philosophers, and dreamers. We came to space because we wanted to learn, to grow, to find friends among the stars. What happened with the Crithian Empire was tragic, but it doesn't change who we are or what we want." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Yes, we're hard to kill. That's just biology. And yes, we've developed weapons that work in a galaxy where energy weapons are the standard. But that doesn't make us monsters. We know what war is. We've fought each other for thousands of years on Earth. We know the cost of violence. That's exactly why we prefer peace. We don't want to fight you, any of you. We want to be part of this galactic community. We want to trade and share and learn from each other." A delegate from the Zypherian collective stood. "Many of us believe you, Captain Chen. Your actions speak to your intentions. But you must understand our concern. Your species is essentially immune to the weapons we rely on for defense. How can we trust that you will remain peaceful? What guarantee can you offer?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "I can't offer guarantees. No one can. Humans are individuals, and individuals make their own choices. Some humans might do terrible things. We have criminals and fanatics on Earth, just like you have them in your own societies. What I can offer is transparency. We'll share our technology with you. We'll help you understand our biology. We'll work with you to develop new defensive systems that can protect against kinetic weapons. And we'll establish laws and treaties that hold humans accountable for their actions in galactic space." The debate went on for hours. Some species remained fearful. Others saw opportunity. Still others simply accepted that the galaxy had changed and adaptation was necessary. In the end, the Council voted to accept humanity as a provisional member of the galactic community, with a 5-year probationary period during which human activities would be closely monitored. Over the following months, human behavior largely alleviated the galaxy's concerns. Earth established embassies on dozens of worlds. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers on countless projects. Human artists found eager audiences for their music, literature, and visual arts. Human merchants proved to be fair traders. And human soldiers, when stationed at joint bases for peacekeeping operations, were professional and disciplined. The Krithian Empire struggled to adapt. Their entire culture had been built on military might. With their weapons proven ineffective and their fleet devastated, they faced an identity crisis. Some Krithians called for continued resistance. Others argued for acceptance and adaptation. The debate split their society, leading to internal conflicts that would take years to resolve. Meanwhile, humans continued to spread through the galaxy. More ships arrived from Earth each month. Colonies were established on uninhabited worlds. Human tourists visited alien homeworlds, marveling at the diversity of life. And everywhere they went, humans displayed that same almost naive friendliness that had characterized first contact. David, the crew member who had been shot repeatedly during the initial boarding incident, found himself becoming an unlikely celebrity. His image, standing calmly as plasma fire washed over him, had spread across the galactic net. He gave interviews to alien media, patiently explaining human biology and culture. "I'm not special," he told a Corellian reporter. "Any human could have stood there and been fine. That's just how we're built. But what matters isn't that we're hard to kill. What matters is that we don't want to kill anyone. We're here to make friends, not enemies." Tommy, the younger crew member, used his newfound fame differently. He started a cultural exchange program, teaching aliens about human literature, philosophy, and art. He discovered that many species found human creative works fascinating, particularly human fiction. "You create stories about impossible things," a Zrillian student told him. "Humans who can fly, who can see through walls, who live forever. You imagine powers beyond what you have." Tommy smiled. "That's because we've always been limited by our own mortality and weakness." "Oh wait, I guess we're not actually that weak anymore, are we? But for most of human history, we were fragile. We could be killed easily. So we dreamed about being stronger, tougher, safer. Now we meet you, and you have technologies we never imagined. Faster than light travel, energy manipulation, quantum computing. You have powers that we only dreamed about. So maybe we can trade. We'll share our dreams with you, and you'll share your knowledge with us." This became the foundation of human integration into galactic society. Humans offered something unique, not because of their defensive biology, but because of their cultural perspective. They were a death world species that had somehow remained curious and optimistic. They had evolved under conditions that should have produced paranoid survivalists, yet they were eager to trust and cooperate. They were apex predators who preferred to make friends rather than hunt prey. The academic community became fascinated with this paradox. A Thraxian anthropologist named Dr. Vex published a paper titled "The Human Contradiction: How the Galaxy's Most Dangerous Species Became Its Most Cooperative." The paper explored how humanity's very resilience had allowed them to develop a cooperative society. Because humans were so hard to kill, they didn't need to be as territorial or aggressive as more fragile species. They could afford to take risks on trusting strangers because betrayal rarely resulted in death. Their thick skin, literally and figuratively, had made them more open to others. Not everyone agreed with this assessment. The Krithians, still bitter over their defeat, argued that humans were simply hiding their true nature. "They're predators playing at being prey," a Krithian military analyst wrote. "They lull you into complacency and then strike. Their friendliness is a weapon more dangerous than their guns." But this view became increasingly difficult to maintain as years passed, and human behavior remained consistent. When a plague struck the methane breathers' homeworld, human medical teams rushed to help, working in environment suits to assist beings whose very atmosphere was poisonous to humans. When a Zrillion colony was threatened by a rogue asteroid, human ships helped redirect it, using their kinetic weapons to alter its trajectory. When the hive mind of Kepler 442 faced a philosophical crisis that threatened to fracture their collective consciousness, human philosophers spent months in deep dialogue, helping them find a new synthesis. These actions built trust more effectively than any treaty could. The galaxy began to see humans not as a threat, but as an opportunity. Species that had spent millennia being cautious and defensive started to wonder if they too could afford to be more open, more trusting, more cooperative. If humans, who had every reason to be aggressive conquerors, could choose peace and friendship, perhaps others could too. The 5-year probationary period ended with barely any debate. The Galactic Council voted overwhelmingly to grant humanity full membership status. Earth was offered a seat on the Security Council, a position usually reserved for the oldest and most powerful civilizations. The human ambassador, a woman named Patricia, who had spent the past 5 years building relationships with hundreds of species, accepted with characteristic human enthusiasm. "We're honored," she said, "and we promise to do our best to deserve your trust." But even as humanity celebrated their acceptance, new challenges emerged. Not all species in the galaxy were part of the Galactic Council. There were rogue states, pirate fleets, and unexplored regions where unknown dangers lurked. And there were rumors of something else, something that had the old powers worried. Deep space sensors had detected anomalous readings from outside the galaxy. Something was coming, something that had prompted several ancient species to begin militarizing in secret. Sarah Chen, now promoted to Admiral and commanding Earth's first fleet carrier, received a classified briefing from Galactic Intelligence. The briefing was delivered by Chancellor Vrix personally, a sign of how serious the matter was. "Admiral, we have become aware of a threat that may change everything. We call them the Devourers. They are an extragalactic swarm that consumes entire civilizations, breaking down matter into raw energy to fuel their spread." Sarah studied the data. "How long until they reach this galaxy?" 10 years, perhaps 15. And Admiral, our weapons are ineffective against them. They consume energy-based attacks, converting them to fuel their own weapons. We have no defense." Sarah understood immediately why she was being told this. But kinetic weapons might work. Precisely. Humanity's primitive ballistic weapons may be the key to survival. But there is another reason we are reaching out to you. The Devourers do not negotiate. They do not communicate. They simply consume. The galaxy will need soldiers who can fight in the worst possible conditions. Soldiers who can take damage and keep fighting. Soldiers who won't break under pressure. Sarah nodded slowly. "You need humanity to lead the defense. We need humanity to teach us how to fight like you do, how to endure, how to keep coming no matter the cost. You are a death world species, Admiral. You evolved in hell and thrived. Now we need you to show the rest of us how to survive." Sarah considered the implications. Humanity had spent 5 years proving they were peaceful. Now they were being asked to become warriors. But she understood that sometimes peace required the capacity for violence. Sometimes friendship meant being willing to defend those friends, even at great cost. "We'll help," she said finally, "but we'll do it our way. We'll teach you to fight, but we'll also teach you something else. Something that's kept humanity going through every disaster we've ever faced." "What is that?" Sarah smiled. "Hope. No matter how bad things get, humans always believe we can find a way through. We're stubborn like that. It's probably the same trait that made our skin so tough. We just don't know when to quit." Over the next decade, humanity transformed from newcomers to leaders. Human military advisors worked with every major species, teaching them the principles of kinetic warfare. Human engineers helped design new ship types built to survive damage rather than avoid it. Human psychologists developed training programs to help soldiers cope with the realities of brutal combat. And human diplomats worked tirelessly to unite the fractious species of the galaxy into a coordinated defense force. The preparations were massive. Thousands of ships were built or retrofitted. Millions of soldiers were trained. Resource production was ramped up across hundreds of worlds. And through it all, humans served as the glue holding the alliance together. When the Crithians and Xyrillians argued over tactical doctrine, human mediators found compromises. When the methane breathers worried they couldn't fight effectively in ships designed for oxygen breathers, human engineers designed hybrid vessels. When morale flagged under the weight of the approaching doom, human performers put on shows that reminded everyone what they were fighting to protect. David, now a training instructor, worked with a class of Xyrillian soldiers. They were practicing with projectile weapons, something completely foreign to their culture. "I don't understand," one student said. "Why would we use these primitive weapons when we have superior technology?" David loaded his rifle and fired at a target, punching a hole clean through it. Because sometimes simple works best. Your energy weapons are more efficient, more powerful, more elegant, but they have a weakness. They can be absorbed, reflected, or converted. A bullet is just a piece of metal moving really fast. There's no fancy physics to exploit. It either hits the target or it doesn't. Another student raised a tentacle nervously. "But Instructor David, we're not like humans. We can be killed by these weapons. We're afraid." David's expression softened. "Good. Fear keeps you alive. Fear makes you careful. Humans feel fear too. We're just trained to work through it. And that's what we're teaching you. Not to be fearless, but to be effective despite your fear. You don't have to be as tough as humans to be good soldiers. You just have to be willing to do your job even when you're scared." Tommy, meanwhile, had taken a different path. He worked with Galactic Media, producing content designed to maintain civilian morale. He created a series of programs showcasing the diversity and beauty of galactic civilization. "This is what we're protecting," he told his production team. "Not just planets and resources, but cultures and dreams. Every species has something unique to offer. The galaxy is richer because we're all different." His most popular program was a simple concept. He traveled to different worlds and spent time with ordinary families, sharing meals and stories. He laughed at Xyrillian jokes, even when he didn't fully understand them. He listened to methane breather poetry, even though the translations were awkward. He played games with Crithian children, showing them that humans weren't the monsters their parents' generation had feared. The program reminded everyone that behind all the military preparations, they were all just people trying to live their lives. Patricia, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, worked the political angle. She negotiated treaties and trade agreements, ensuring that no species would be left behind in the preparations. She also worked to address lingering prejudices and fears. Some species still saw humans as dangerous. Others had become dependent on human leadership and needed to be reminded of their own strengths. "We're not here to save you," she told the council. "We're here to fight alongside you. This is everyone's battle, and everyone has a role to play." The Devourers arrived in the 13th year. They entered the galaxy at its rim, a vast swarm of organic ships that consumed everything in their path. The first warning came when a remote research station went silent. A scout ship sent to investigate found nothing, not even debris. The Devourers had broken down the station, atom by atom, converting it to fuel and building materials for more of their kind. The first battle was a disaster. A defensive fleet of 200 ships, using conventional energy weapons, engaged the Devourers in the outer rim. The Devourers absorbed the energy attacks and used them to power their own weapons. Within an hour, the entire fleet was gone. Not destroyed, consumed. The Devourers had grown by several hundred vessels, using the matter from the destroyed ships to create more of themselves. The galaxy reeled in horror. The worst predictions were coming true. But then the second battle happened, and everything changed. A combined fleet led by human warships and using the kinetic weapons and tactics developed over the past decade engaged a devourer formation. The battle was brutal. The devourers were incredibly resilient, requiring multiple direct hits to destroy. But the kinetic weapons worked. The railgun slugs and missiles couldn't be absorbed or converted. They punched through devourer hulls and tore them apart. The devourers adapted their tactics, trying to swarm and overwhelm through sheer numbers. But the galactic fleet had learned from humanity how to fight when surrounded. They formed defensive formations, overlapping their fire, supporting each other. Ships that were damaged didn't retreat, but continued fighting until they were destroyed. And in the human ships, crew members who were exposed to vacuum when their vessels were breached kept fighting from their ruined stations, refusing to quit as long as they could still pull a trigger. The second battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the devourers had been pushed back, though at terrible cost. The galactic fleet had lost 30% of its ships, but they had proven something crucial. The devourers could be beaten. The key was persistence, the willingness to take losses and keep fighting, exactly what humans had been teaching for the past decade. The war settled into a brutal rhythm. The devourers pushed into the galaxy, consuming world after world. The galactic fleets fought them at every step, buying time for evacuations, slowing their advance. Each battle cost thousands of lives, but each battle also taught new lessons, revealed new tactics. And through it all, human soldiers led by example, showing the galaxy what Death World persistence looked like. Sarah Chen commanded the fleet from her flagship, a massive carrier called the Indomitable. She had been in almost continuous combat for 2 years, ever since the war began. Her ship had been rebuilt 3 times, each time after sustaining damage that would have destroyed any other vessel. But like the planet that had forged them, humans didn't know when to quit. "All ships, prepare for jump," she ordered. "We're taking the fight to them."